It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Right as we go to press, the new iOS is out, 12.1.3. We'll have the details on that. Also, Rene's got the new Apple iPhone battery case. He'll have his review, some surprises inside. And we'll talk about Apple's new movie plans. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 645, recorded Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019, from Hump to Rump. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Calm, the #1 app to help you meditate, sleep, and relax. Start 2019 off right with Calm. For a limited time, get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/MacBreak. And by ExpressVPN. Protect your online activity today. For an extra 3 months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/MacBreak. And by FreshBooks, the ridiculously easy-to-use cloud accounting software helping small business owners thrive. Try it free for 30 days at freshbooks.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we get together with, actually at this point, Alex, Andy, and Rene to talk about the latest news from Apple. Here's Alex Lindsay.
Hello, hello.
Star of pixelcore.com. Great to see you in studio.
Good to be here.
Andy Ihnatko from WGBH Boston, Boston Public
Hello.
Radio, and the newly revised Ihnatko.com database working.
Thank you.
And all the way from Montreal, Mr. Rene Ritchie, where he's freezing cold. Fortunately, Apple's putting a beach up for you on your Apple TV. Warm you up.
Yeah, it's so considerate of them just to show me what I don't have. It's amazing.
I guess we should start with Tim Cook's editorial in Time Magazine.
Yeah.
You deserve privacy online. So smart of Apple to double down on privacy. This is at this point, they're the last man standing.
Right.
I mean, Google, Facebook, Amazon, even Microsoft. None of them respect your privacy, obviously.
And it would be difficult for them to do that.
Okay, good. I want a little disagreement. So
they respect Andy's privacy.
Let me read what Tim said in Time Magazine this week. He says, 2019, it's time to stand up for your right to privacy. Yours, mine, all of ours. Consumers shouldn't have to tolerate another year of companies irresponsibly amassing huge user profiles, data breaches that seem out of control, and I should read it like he would, and the vanishing ability to control our own digital lives.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, so
make sure you include the applause breaks.
He's calling for Congress to pass comprehensive federal privacy legislation, and he has 4 points.
Yeah.
He says the right to have personal data minimized, the right to know what data is being collected on you and why, the right to accessing your data to correct it or delete it, and the right to data security, without which trust is impossible. Those all seem reasonable, and it kind of actually seems like what GDPR does in Europe.
Yeah. Also, there's the UK has a top-level government bureau that has exactly the same principles too.
The issue is, of course, so does California, but I think companies like Apple would prefer it be a federal law rather than 50 individual state laws.
A new thing in there too, which is super interesting, which he didn't have last time, and that he believes there should be a data broker clearinghouse so that you know not only who collected your data, but who they've sold it to or given it to or shared it with or partnered with or been merged and acquisitioned with down the chain. So that if you do decide you trust Google, you give it to Google. If Google shares with other people, you have the right to know who all those other people are. Or if your local ISP decides they're going to share data, you should always be able to go to a national clearinghouse and see the sort of path, the blood trail of your data, so to speak.
He says the FTC should be in charge of that. This all seems like a sensible thing. Andy, what is? So you don't think that Apple is? I don't know. What do you think? I'm not sure what your complaint was.
I was just reacting to the comment that Apple's the only company that respects privacy. Google, I think, has a basic fundamental respect for privacy, but that's within and security, but that's within the bailiwick of their ability to make money from user data. However, given that it's not even into their economic interest to let any other company have access to your data, as opposed to sorry, 3 Cokes today, not just way too many Cokes today.
I love it.
Basically that Google doesn't sell personal information; they sell access to people, because that's a really important asset to them. So not only do I think that they
same thing with Facebook, also, Andy, and obviously Facebook didn't mind selling it to the third parties.
No, Facebook and Google are on way different. Facebook is such a deep level of hell that we have not been able to create a probe that could survive the heat and pressure to send it down there to see what the core of Facebook's moral center is. I mean, even like I've been looking at, someone had a 15-minute video on YouTube about the next version of Android, and it seems to be very much a privacy-focused update. Also internally, when I talk to, we all talk to people internally and unofficially at Facebook and Google and at Apple, and Facebook, they just don't seem to understand that this is an important thing. It's an important thing for PR purposes, but otherwise, no. Google, every time I talk to people at there, they are very concerned when there's any sort of a compromise to security. As a matter of fact, they shut down the Dragonfly project, but creating a Chinese search engine was definitely taken back to square one, because an internal group said, hey, look, you're using data in a way that you have to go through us first, the privacy board, to figure out if you're using this data okay, because you didn't go through us. Guess what? You don't get access to any of that data anymore. You have to throw out and start all over again. So I'm saying that I don't think you can say that Apple's the only one that's interested in this. However, Apple is in the best position to champion this, because they don't have really any financial stake in user data. And what Tim is talking about is something that has been done very well in the UK and the EU, and it needs to be a federal law. And all these companies are kind of interested in being a federal law, because they feel as though they can lobby one set of legislators a lot more effectively than they can lobby 50 sets of legislators. So
I've had a chance to talk to a lot of the people inside, and it's very interesting because they all have their different perspectives. When you talk to Apple's security team, they don't want anyone to have your data. They don't even want Apple to have it if they can possibly do it. They just want you to have your data, and they'll try to do stuff with it as best as they can for you, but really they have no interest in your data. When you talk to Google, they're like, Facebook and the NSA are the enemy. You can trust us, we're fine, but Facebook and the NSA are the absolute devil. And now with like, I saw the video on XDA as well, and they're going to do a lot of stuff with Android Q, but it's still outward-facing stuff. It's stuff to protect your privacy from others. And Google, I think, still has never had that moment of reflection about what they allow to be collected internally, because that you're right, that group shut down what was happening with Google. But until they shut it down, nobody at Google cared that they were doing all. It wasn't like they had access to this information and someone had to go in and shut it down. It wasn't like they had to go and apply for this information. It's still a very free boot culture within there, and I don't think they respect it. I think they're wise to know that people will get super angry when they don't, and they'll react to it when they do. But there's still no culture of we need to go and ask permission before we do this. And Facebook, exactly what Andy said, is sort of like we're connecting the world and don't bother us with the details while we do it.
I disagree. I think that the situation with Dragonfly was a special situation because they're not talking about data that Google was collecting on its own users. I think one of the reasons why it was able to happen was because this is a Chinese internet sort of homepage, like launch page, that Google had bought a while ago, and it was easier for the team that was developing the search engine to get access to that data because it was kind of on the periphery of what Google is collecting and not so. I disagree, but only because the conversations I've had with people inside Google is not in sync with what the conversations apparently that you've had with these people. And as we always, every time we talk about this, there's always again that flip side of things. That, for instance, if you, I say often that the best Google features are right at that balance point between incredibly cool and incredibly creepy. So like if you're using Gmail as your main inbox, you suddenly get a reminder to say, oh, remember how you signed up for newspapers.com for that 30-day free trial? Well, that was 28 days ago, and if you don't cancel it in the next 2 days, they're going to charge you $120 for the 1-year subscription. And at one point, you say, wait a minute, Google has been like looking through my emails for. Actually, I totally forgot about that. Thank you for saving me $120, Google. Tap, 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 tap. But hey, you shouldn't have been looking at my data that way. So it's a trade-off. Like there's arguments to be made that a lot of Apple products aren't as good as competing products because they're even unwilling to take data willingly from people. If they were to ask people, hey, if you allow us to do this, to take a look at this and to retain this data, here's how we could make this product better for you. And that might be a limiting factor for how well they can develop their products and services.
Well, I think that Apple has the advantage here and will always have the advantage because they're not making money on your data, and they're just always going to be able to play this game much harder than everyone else. They are because they're and they're not going to. And as we move into Internet of Things, I think people are going to become more and more sensitive to the fact that Ring sent video to the Ukraine and Amazon accidentally sent a bunch of records to other people.
Yes.
So the thing is that, and I think the mistake Apple's made with Internet of Things, for instance, is not releasing more hardware, not doing their own bits and pieces here, and making sure that they kind of set the pace for them.
Actually going in the opposite direction because they used to require that chip and now they just do software.
And I think that's a mistake. I think that Apple should triple down on it. And
let's look at these 4 points and grade Apple on these 4 points and other companies too. The right to have personal data minimized. Now that you have to trust the company to do that. Cook says companies should really be thinking, do I need to collect all this data that I'm collecting? And actually, this is the point in surveillance capitalism where Shoshana Zuboff says Google collected it just by accident, was data exhaust, and then realized its value later. Apple, you think? I think Apple probably does do this.
You can trust the technologies. I mean, like I said, I never trust the company, but I trust the technologies. And if they're using AES encryption, if they're using differential privacy, and you can go through the chain and they publish those white papers, and people have hacked into their systems enough to see like they've gone through the acceleration.
We don't really. I mean, you can't know with any company, maybe more with Apple than others, but you can't know with any company how much they're collecting and whether they're really minimizing and anonymizing and how effective their anonymization is and all that stuff. But I think we can say Apple's probably doing this. Yes. Why wouldn't they, right? There's no incentive for them to do otherwise.
And once you speak the way you do, if you're caught not doing it, then it's a world of hurt for you.
How about, and of course, Google is probably collecting everything they can. We know Facebook's collecting everything they can. We know Amazon's collecting everything they can.
Right.
What Zuboff says is, I didn't know this, but there was, when Larry and Sergey presented PageRank in 1998 to a web conference, Larry said, and of course, you can't take advertising or sell advertising against this data because it would, no matter what, even if you didn't want it to, compromise the quality of your search. That search has to be, he said this explicitly, what I've said for a long time, which is search kind of has to be agnostic.
It has to be pure.
It has to be pure. And Zuboff says what happened was they basically invented surveillance capitalism after the .com bust because their investors came to them and said, guys, you got to monetize now. And they said, oh, well, look, we accidentally have all this data from our users. Let's use this. And they turned around. So we know Google's doing it and discovered it. This is the fear, though, is maybe companies are accidentally gathering this and haven't yet seen the value of it. And then down the road, they go, oh, look at this trove of data.
Or they get bought by a company.
Or they get bought.
The data,
or the government comes to them.
Or what happens is it's not the any vertical of data that's being gathered. It is the combination of all of them that gives someone a crystal clear vision of a
even
given
across
person.
Companies.
Yeah, well, and Facebook not only gathers a lot of data from their users, but they buy a lot of data. Right. To build that.
Right. And frankly, so does Google and we know Google does this because they've offered their advertisers the information about when a user goes into a brick and mortar store and buys something with a credit card. Look, that was from your ad. So that they're buying credit card purchase data.
And to your previous point, we've seen them use Google results when other companies' results are better at the top of their search because they want to promote their own version of that business. And because before it was all about it has to be the best result, we'll do anything with the best result. But over time that gets compromised because you're like, well, we can't build our business if we don't give more people to it. So we'll just push this TripAdvisor.
But here's a data point. Here's a data point, and that data point is $9 billion, which is what Google pays Apple or paid Apple last year for all of the data from Safari searches.
The biggest hole with all four of these is the Google search inside of the iPhone.
Yeah. Or the minute you put a Facebook app on the iPhone. So what Apple doesn't control is what other people are doing with their hardware. Right. They may not be collecting it, but it's a little bit hands. Well, if Google gave us $9 billion and supposedly $12 billion this year, that's not
you could make an argument. Like you could make an argument that an adult should be allowed, or like anybody should be allowed to install a Facebook app or a Google app if they want to.
That's right.
But the search thing is the one that's bothersome because there's no box that flashes up and says, "Do you want Google to be your default search engine?" Or
if Apple really believes this,
which ones do you want to
give us? Give us a DuckDuckGo option, right?
Yeah, totally. Or at least give us that browser roulette thing that they did in the EU where it lets you choose at the beginning.
Second, the right to knowledge. And I like this, to know what data is being collected and why. How forthright is Apple about that? Do they tell us? We know Google does, by the way. Google's dashboard is very good in this regard.
Apple has a download. You download a big binary blob, and it has things like you made an iTunes purchase on January 3rd.
And that's only since GDPR, though, right? That's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's because they were required to do it.
And because they never collected enough to actually, they never did it internally. They had no interest in it.
If you look at the downloads,
they don't have a structure for what their
wasn't
data looks like.
When you download it, it's not very much stuff.
Because they don't want it. Like Apple specifically doesn't want to, they don't want to be accountable for it.
That's the first one. Minimize, right?
And
that's
they just,
the first point.
And Apple's they're trying to burn all the bridges behind them as they, because they're trying to get into a situation where, like, if you look at this fight, which I still think is going to be a big deal from Australia, is Apple's trying to just basically cut off, break everything so that it would take a long time and be really hard to even get back to getting your data. They're going as far the opposite direction of the search companies and social companies as you can.
Third point, the right to access, and that's that download that Apple offers. Google offers the same thing. I don't know how complete it is. Facebook now does too. I think that's GDPR requiring it. Yeah. So it's not like they had any choice. So everybody now, thanks to and this is why a national law would be a good thing, because companies aren't going to do it until they have to do it, right? And finally, the right to data security, and this is a real problem. Apple has been breached. Google, to my knowledge, has never been breached. Facebook will give it away. They don't care about it.
Yeah.
I don't think Apple's user data has been. Apple as a company's network has been breached, but I don't know.
No, iCloud. Remember those?
That wasn't breached though. Those were phished.
Okay, breach security is the point. If you could phish Apple and get Scarlett Johansson's nude pictures, that's not data security.
There was some Gmail and there was a whole bunch of different accounts, and there was a lot of Apple, but there was some Yahoo, there was some Gmail.
I'm just pointing out.
Yeah, no, totally.
But that also points out how important it is to get the language of this sort of legislation correct. You can't have a government or a civil suit claiming that, well, I know that Ms. Johansson had her password 123456, and maybe it's her fault, but hey, Apple should have made sure that she couldn't use a password like 123456. They should have made her change her password every single week. That's the kind of mess that can happen if we over legislate this. But you do have to go back pretty far to find a case of Apple being kind of irresponsible, that sort of stuff. Remember where they're doing it, they quote accidentally unquote left a testing mode enabled with, what was it? I don't know if it was Google Maps, if it was Apple Maps, or if it was just for their Wi-Fi app. But basically, they left sort of a breadcrumb of trails of locations of Wi-Fi hotspots and cell towers that it connected to, and that was in a place where a sufficiently enabled hacker could go get that data and again get a recent map of places where people have been. But that was 6 years ago, and it seems as though whoever needed their ass kicked on that one got their butt kicked.
It's hard to do, and I would not blame any company for a mistake, as long as that company shows that they are clearly working on it.
Yeah, but that's maybe, I think it's one of the most important parts of this entire letter. Right now, are absolutely no repercussions if you are irresponsible to the extent of carelessness with user data. Like, I'm keeping your social security numbers and credit card numbers in plain text on an Amazon on an Amazon server where anybody could just find it and get it. And all you got to do is say, oops, uh-oh, here's a $5 gift card. We're so sorry. And how are you going to make restitution? Well, we don't have to, so we're not going to. And really, just like when you see all these companies that are creating new protections because they have to comply with the law. Once you put money on the table and saying, here's how much money you're going to be liable for the next time that you leave something in plain text where people can find it, that's when they start thinking about, how can we encrypt these things? How can we actually take good care of data? We've had these laws for medical data, and it works very, very, very well. And it would not have happened if there were not laws with real penalties for abusing patients' medical data.
Well, and I think that Apple, this opens up an opportunity for Apple, which is that, already they're moving heavily into the healthcare industry, and they're going to continue to move down that path. I still think that they have a lot of opportunities to move into the banking industry and then home automation. And all three of those things, people are super sensitive about their privacy related to those things. And I think that Apple is better positioned than anyone else to take advantage of that.
Google is paying the first big GDPR fine, 50 million euros, to the French data regulator for, quote, lack of transparency, inadequate information, and lack of valid consent regarding ad personalization. People weren't informed about how Google collected data to personalize advertising. I don't know if that's and we'll debate this, I'm sure, tomorrow on Twig, but I don't know if that's a fair fine, but it's a hefty enough fine to get people's attention, that's for sure.
It's definitely an indication of a user-oriented piece of legislation. It's not designed to mitigate liability to corporations. It's designed to basically make life difficult for a company like Google, who then has to defend themselves, even if the penalty is out of scale with what the transgression was, or if there was even a transgression. But I think that's exactly where it should be. I really don't have the ability to sue Google once they decided to put my entire browsing history online for anybody to see, whereas Google has the wherewithal to defend themselves from a government action or FTC action saying you owe us $50 million for being irresponsible with Ihnatko's browser history.
I think the only downside of this is I was talking to somebody that is a developer in Europe, and they said the real challenge is for little companies. He said big companies like Google can afford to pay these fines no matter how big they are, but little companies are now terrified of data collection at all. Like any new business idea that might include data collection is something that they don't.
Newspapers said to European readers, you can't read the LA Times, you can't read.
Right, and as we look at the new
and it's
privacy
a new link
laws
tax law, right?
That fortunately looks like that's it was Article 13 and 14 are going to go down, it looks like, but but
I think link tax was part of 13, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So I think that looks like that's not going to happen. But the irony is, the big headlines say, some number of European states didn't support 13 and 14, so it probably won't pass. But in most cases, they didn't support it because it didn't go far enough.
I know, it's horrible.
It wasn't that it was a terrible idea, which it was. It didn't go far enough.
It wasn't terrible enough.
So this is the problem, is that, and this is where people get very nervous when you talk about government regulation of the internet and of this kind of thing. Yeah, we want privacy and security, but at the same time, you can also make a law that's a terrible law.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Alex made a really good point there. Recently, we saw a maybe good intentioned or just maybe facetiously applied American law that says we need to protect people from sex trafficking, and so because because a lot of that business is being done on the internet, we're going to say that you are liable if people are using your site or service for the purposes of sex trafficking, which is okay, but it's broadly enough so that means that now if you are a smaller sort of site or smaller host, all the message boards that you've got that allow frank discussion of sex work, and also are support pages for people who are in that kind of work that use it as a community resource to keep themselves safe and keep themselves healthy. Now those are being pulled down because these smaller companies cannot possibly afford to deal with either a government lawsuit, government shutdown, or a civil suit that might come as a result of this legislation. information. So it's really important that we start these talks. Apple is doing a really good job here by saying we're in a position where we can championship this on principle because for whatever reason. So we are going to make this part of the ongoing conversation. We're going to use our power to put pressure on other companies to try to support this kind of stuff too. And it's also easy to come up with a 4-point Bill of Rights. I've always said that I think that the most important article in a digital Bill of Rights is that your personal data belongs to you, and you can license it to other people, but it still belongs to you, and we can revoke that license at any time. However, implementing that in such a way that it allows Google to implement really, really good features that I like for Google Maps without having to make me opt through every single time that I want to find out, hey, is the post office near me open right now? That's going to be bad. And it means that the next startup that has a really good idea for a mapping app can't even get off the ground because of liability. That's also bad. So we need to move forward, and we're going to have to suffer some mistakes, but we have to make sure that we don't just get out of our heads on this.
Well, and one of the things that Apple's actually still better positioned for most of this. They could actually provide a service to startups or even brands where you basically have a privacy layer that Apple knows who the people are on one side. The brand knows nothing about them other than what they divulge to the brand. And the brand could actually literally build a social network around them. Not a social network like Facebook, but like a following, or and this could be a brand or an individual. But it all goes through this privacy layer that kind of obscures,
like Apple Pay.
Kind of like Apple Pay, except for social. and the brands could, because the brands are all antsy to get off these networks for a variety of reasons. When the social networks are constantly changing the rules about how you can interact with their platform, it makes the brands crazy because they make plans for years or a year at least, and now the rules that were working last year aren't working this year. So they're all antsy to go somewhere. Apple could provide them with that. I don't know if they will.
Apple Twitter, you mean? An Apple Facebook?
Well, not an Apple. It wouldn't be
Apple
a centralized
Instagram.
one. Think of it more of if Coca-Cola.
I would sign up for an Apple Instagram.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
So the idea though is that that the data people could come to, like they could come to let's say virtual events or other things like that, or be interacting, but you as a brand or as a company don't necessarily know who they are beyond what they said, but they are who they. It is a stable relationship. Like who you're talking to the same person you talked to before. It's just that it's randomized in a way that you can't identify.
Interesting. What a good business for Apple if they did that.
It would be a big business.
This is why they really need to double down on this. There's no reason for them in any way to hold back because there is a huge opportunity since they seem to be the only company that cares the least about this.
Right.
Yeah. It would probably work better if it worked kind of the way the banking industry worked, where no one person holds the truth, and no one private organization holds the truth or holds the ability to sort of police the whole thing. Because remember that Apple could be in the same place that BlackBerry or Nokia were at in 10 years' time, and then when we're at now, it's a company that simply has all these assets.
Right.
And if they are also in charge of controlling this thing, they are also.
Yep.
That's why let's take some of the budget away from the border wall security and the TSA and create like a federal clearinghouse, a federal custom house for consumer data.
But then there's the fear that that's going to go to intelligence agencies, that they'll have free access to that. Yeah,
that's true.
This is why this is a very intransigent problem. It's a hard problem to solve.
Well, I mean, we have DNS records that are not owned by one country, one government, one company, and it seems to work. It can be hacked and there can be flaws, but we can make it work. So if we have a non-centralized, distributed, and encrypted system for this sort of thing, where basically
that's
this is
blockchain. There you go. Yeah. Store your data in blockchain. It's decentralized. It's encrypted. Nobody controls it.
Like ourselves. Invest in AdCoin.
As long as we're talking security, Tim Cook, we know now from a proxy statement Apple filed with the SEC, is protected by $310,000 worth of personal security.
Just tiny.
Which is actually tiny. Apple, protect your CEO. Oracle spent $1.6 million for Larry Ellison. Amazon spent the same for Jeff Bezos. Alphabet spent $600,000 for Sundar Pichai.
What's hilarious to me as a Canadian is I always had these images in my head of seeing like Reagan and Bush and all the Secret Service and the motorcades. And then I was in Ottawa just visiting, and you see like the leader of the country just sitting there having dinner like on the patio.
I actually like that.
Maybe there's like one copper on the side.
I
like
like
in England,
that.
it's like I have a copper. That's what you have as your security.
I'm watching Victoria on PBS. She gets in her carriage and rides around in the park. And she's got a couple of, guards and a horse behind her. It's crazy.
Roosevelt just going for a walk.
Used to be able to go get cheese in the White House.
Remember Jean Chrétien? Someone threw a pie at him, and there was no security around, so he choked the guy out himself. That's what you do in Canada.
Yeah, you like a prime minister that can choke a guy out. Brian Krzanich, former CEO of Intel, $1.2 million a year. Mark Zuckerberg in 2017 cost the company $7.3 million. It will be, according to 9 to 5 Mac, $10 million by 2018.
Okay, well that makes sense. If anybody is at risk of having a shoe thrown at them, that's the guy.
So I'll tell you what, to round out this whole discussion, if Apple's committed to this, and Apple ought to be, because I think it's a great opportunity for them, we'll know the minute they let you use DuckDuckGo and Safari on iOS.
Or they buy DuckDuckGo.
No, don't buy DuckDuckGo. That's the problem Andy was talking about with one company has too much information.
I would just settle for a requester. Like as soon as you launch Safari for the first time, like you don't do it when you start up the compute, like the iPhone, but the first time you launch Safari, just say, do you want to have Google
or
your
search to be?
as your...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and until Apple does that, I'm sorry, Tim, you can write all the editorials you want, but that $9 billion is clearly speaking louder than your desire for privacy, period.
Yeah. I mean, I like to point out these sort of things. I also like to point out how they deal with foreign governments, but that doesn't minimize my respect for the fact that they didn't have to do this. They didn't have to start off this letter that invites cynics and ne'er-do-wells like me to say, yeah, but what about this thing they're doing? They're kind of cozy with China, aren't they? Or how come they're still taking money from Google? Really, you need to have a company to be the first one to stick their foot their foot out of the tent and see if it gets bitten off. And Apple is doing something they didn't have to do, and that's we need to get that conversation started, and we don't want this conversation to be started by a disaster of even larger proportions than we've seen with previous data breaches.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's time to take a deep breath and get calm.
Bad air out. Good ear in.
With calm.com. You have to say that carefully. Calm with an L in it. .com with no L in it. Oh, I'm on my Calm site right now. Look at this. It's very. Shall I really listen to our daily Calm right now?
Welcome to the Daily Calm. Today, we'll explore the deceptive nature of comfort.
I'll have to stop right there because otherwise,
no spoilers.
You may not know why comfort is deceptive. There is so much good at calm.com. For meditation, I've mentioned the sleep stories. I want Matthew McConaughey reading me my sleep story tonight. This is all about wonder.
Well, hello there. I'm Matthew McConaughey, and tonight I'll be reading a special sleep story called Wonder. Before we begin, as you settle in under the covers with your head easing into the pillow and your body sinking into the mattress, I'd like you to let your mind drift with me for just a minute.
You actually get a whole bunch of these from a variety of readers, including Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry, you want to hear Stephen Fry's lullabies? Now we're talking.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Stephen Fry.
Oh, yes, you are.
And tonight, I'll be reading you a few lullabies. And soothingly
I can't keep playing this because I'm going to fall asleep. No. This is so great. There's music on here, a variety of music that you can work to, that you can relax to, that you can sleep to. There is, of course, advanced training in all sorts of things like peak performance, breaking bad habits, living beyond fear. Oh, I got to do this one. Social media and screen addiction. Calm is the #1 app to help you meditate, sleep, relax, and live your best life, your happiest, healthiest self. I know you made a resolution this new year to be happier and healthier. Well, Calm is going to help you do it. The #1 app for this. It was App of the Year by Apple in 2017. It was part of Apple's Best of 2018 list. It really is a beautiful app. If you go to Calm, CALM.com/MacBreak, you can get 25% off a Calm premium subscription. I've got that, of course, and I've had that for some time. I really love Calm.com. You get hundreds of hours of programming, guided meditations on anxiety, stress, focus. The Daily Calm I played for you, that's brand new. It's a new meditation every day. There are also those sleep stories I mentioned. Explore New Zealand with Jerome Flynn from Game of Thrones. How about that? And yes, there's some Bob Ross. They license Bob Ross. I always thought he was maybe kind of sleepy and happy little Z's with teeth.
Oh. Show you right.
Oh, yeah, baby. Look at that happy little cloud. Baby. Soothing music, breathing exercises, gentle stretches to relax your body.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross,
And
and I'd
more.
like to welcome you to the 20th Joy of Painting series.
You can get the Calm app for iOS. There's also an Android version. For a limited time, 25% off the premium subscription at calm.com/MacBreak. Go to calm.com/MacBreak and get unlimited access to all of Calm's content right away. What a great way to start a new year. Calm.com/MacBreak. You know, stress is actually bad for you. I mean, it makes you sick. It makes you unhappy. And this is the stress antidote.
That and Do Not Disturb.
Do not just. I do that now on every app. I turn off. I don't want notifications on anything, and then of course Do Not Disturb from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
I do Not Disturb from 7 a.m. to 6:59 a.m.
You do it all the time.
I just
No,
leave it on.
I did
So I
that
leave
for
it
a
on.
while, but I was missing some stuff.
No, I turn it on and then I open up contacts. So if you're in my contacts, you can call me. If you're not in my contacts,
That's the way to do it.
That you set up.
Only people can call who I know.
And so, but what you do have to get good at is if there's somebody new, you have to put them in your contacts, or you won't get them back. But I
They'll
very
leave a
quickly,
message, right? They get to leave a message.
Yeah, well, my message on my phone says,
Don't leave me messages.
No, my message on my phone is, "Hi, this is Alex. I don't answer this number, and I don't check my voicemail."
So there you go.
So because I believe that someone wants to call, if you're not in my contact list and you want to call me, the proper
What
way
do
to
you
do
do for
that
clients?
is to contact me and set up a call.
Oh,
and then we'll
makes
go to
sense.
GoToMeeting and whatever we're going to use, and we're going to set up a call that's more than 24 hours from today because I don't know you yet. So like once you're in my contact list, you can call me anytime you want. But if you're new, we'll just set up a call. You know,
I would still
like
really
people just
love
calling me. What?
Apple to take VIP. I would love Apple to take VIP out of email and put it in contacts. I could just have a group of people who, no matter how they want to get in touch with me, like my mom, you know, like family members who I need to know about. But let me do VIP for messages, for phone, for email, for anything, not just for email. Just
Can
make that
you
a
help
contact.
me with
Yeah, I
VIP?
agree.
Yes.
It doesn't work for me. So look, so this is in Apple Mail, right? I've got VIP turned on. I've got all of my VIPs, my kids,
Yes.
and none of them end up in here, just this one. And that was because
That's
my name
ridiculous.
is in the email. So why is VIP not working?
It should, as long as the person has a sender name the same that's in the VIP list, and you have to add per email address. So if they're sending from a different email address than you added, you have to have them in there for each email address you want. But then it should just work once you've added them.
Yeah, should just work.
I ran out. I think there was a limit for a while of 100, but they seem to have gotten rid of that because I'm adding more now.
See, I just tell
I have
everyone
all of Abby's addresses in here. I get email from her all the time, and it's never shown up. And same thing with
On your
Henry.
Mac as well?
Yeah, I don't think it shows up in my Mac either. What?
See, I have a 3-digit code that I give people that I say, just put this in the subject and I'll
That's a
get
good
it.
idea.
And so, and then there's a filter that just says, the very first filter says, if it has this 3-digit code, it will go to this folder. And I always check that folder
That's
first.
smart.
And then
Because I have my email address I've been using for almost 20 years, so it's it's almost useless. I finally turned off Gmail because it is useless.
it's a little code.
But I set up a personal email server,
Right.
and I have a special address. But I'm really reluctant to give it to anybody because I don't want it to get out. Right? This is just for like I should give it to you and Andy and Rene, but I don't want to publicize it. Which maybe I'll do the code. That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Faux pas says, turn it off and on again.
I just keep declaring email bankruptcy because I get home and because my email address is public, like yours, there's like 3,000 messages and I just can't go through them.
I need to do that.
Yeah. I'm in the infinite mailbox. There's zero mailbox or whatever, zero inbox. I'm in infinite mailbox. Right now I have
infinite. Yeah.
All my inboxes.
There's Merlin on that side of the galaxy and me over here.
Right now I have 98,903. I'm almost to 100,000 in my
109,198.
There you go. See?
I'm the same way. It's like this is where like all the mail goes, and then it gets put someplace else if it's important. But
exactly.
my big problem is with all the people who don't understand like clearly defined rules. I used to have like a second phone that I would actually answer when I said, okay, now remember that if this phone rings in my pocket, that means I'm going to drop everything I'm doing because it's not only for special people, but also for special people under special circumstances. And within 2 months, I was getting the hi, well, you didn't answer your first phone, so I thought I'd call you here. Hi, I just want to make sure you got the email that I sent. And it's like, oy. It's like, so I think that anytime you have a special scheme for email, you need to keep that totally secret from everybody else.
You can't tell anybody.
Everybody just thinks that you just send email to this one address. They don't know that there's a secret code. They don't know that there is a secret whatever, because otherwise it's like I've never been angrier with somebody that was like, again, I literally had to run out of like an event because it was, oh my God, well, they wouldn't be using this number unless it was really, really important. And it was, we're just wondering if it would just get back to me sometime next 3 or 4 days. I'm like,
so
okay.
One thing I am using this email server for is I have a catch-all account. And whenever I sign up for anything, I have it be that company at the catch-all account. So now I know if they give away my email or sell my email address, at least I'll know that.
Right.
But then what do you do about it?
Yeah.
So it's hopeless, basically. It's hopeless. Yeah. I have an email address no one knows, and I'm keeping it that way.
And it's really quiet. There's
no email on it. I love it. I go there and, I get an email today. That's good.
It's Ihnatko Lindsay at Laporte.com.
Actually, what it is good for is it's another level of security when, like for LastPass and stuff, instead of using my public email address, when I sign up for accounts on stuff I want secure, I make up a weird email address at my server that no one would guess. Right? And then so they'd have to know that, plus my password, plus my second factor to hack my account. That's pretty good. That's 3 things they'd have to know.
For me now, I have my password manager has a very long phrase that was from my childhood that is personal to me. I don't think anyone would get it. And then everything else is hashes. It's just but it does crippling every time I go to something that if I have to
can't type it in.
Like I can't type it in.
64 of that.
Yeah. So my wife wanted me to type into Amazon into her, so that she could look at something. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. I can't do that. I can't just type it in. There's no. It's
you know what I did actually for that reason, because I end up having to log into Amazon a lot. My Amazon password's like 8 characters. I should probably fix that.
Mine's really long.
Yeah.
Like it's a 20. Mine's a 20-digit hash created by LastPass. It's like not.
It should be.
Oh yeah, it's hysterically funny. My eBay password was 5 letters long because it's that old. It was that I changed it years ago, but so it's not like something I just recently did. But it's like I kind of like the fact that this is the last password that I have from like the 90s that survived all the way. It's like I kind of feel bad about. Isn't that quaint? It's like an English word of 5 letters, and this account has never been hacked.
Isn't that it's adorable? Time for our public service announcement of the week. And we're talking about collection number 1, 773 email addresses, many passwords in the clear. Troy Hunt discovered it on last Wednesday and put them up on Have I Been Pwned. Then Brian Krebs said, well, I was interested, so I got the name of the guy who's selling them, Sanixer, on Telegram. I contacted him, and he said, yeah, I'll sell you the collection 1, 773 million records. I'll sell it to you for $45. because it's a couple of years old. I've got much better databases than that.
You should have bought it.
So my suggestion is you go to haveibeenpwned.com, not owned, but pwned with a P.
Pwned, yeah.
Pwned. And then at the top of the page, Carson, could you zoom out because you're not seeing it? I don't know. Yeah, there we go. At the top of the page where the menu is, there's a one for passwords.
Yeah.
That's the one you want to go to. Everybody, trust me, has your email address. That's not the question. The question is, do they have your password? And enter in your email password. That's the first one I would enter in to make sure that has not been breached.
See, I don't want to put it into there.
You could trust this guy. You could trust this guy. I know. You know what you're
also,
asking exactly the right question.
It doesn't identify the email address, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. However, Troy is absolutely trustworthy, I think.
Or just go through Tor browser.
Yeah, and remember, he doesn't have your email, so he wouldn't know what account that's for. It'd just be a password. Yeah, you're right, but this is a good way to find out. I immediately entered some older passwords completely. In fact, don't look, but I'll enter one right now. Okay, now you can look, and I'll press, and it says, "Oh no, this password's been seen 4 times before."
What?
Yeah, so this password, which actually is my low security password that I use on apps and stuff that I don't want anybody to. I wouldn't enter your most secure password. Well, see, I think it's good to test your email password. But
if you got your email password, you change it every month anyway.
That's a good point.
One of the things I like about my email service is that it's annoying as hell, but every password you create for it expires in just a few weeks, and you have to choose a new one. And it's like I would probably slip up once or twice or 3 times in a row.
I would do that more often if the propagation wasn't such a nightmare. Like inevitably one device goes, incorrect password. Oh, you entered it wrong.
Start over everywhere.
And there's like 10 devices and you're like, I just want to change my password.
Yeah, eat your vegetables. I mean, nobody likes green beans, but if they're on the plate, you got to eat them.
So anyway, just a little
mommy.
Public service announcement.
Well,
you're right. If you're nervous about entering this into the Troy Hunt's site, and I don't blame you for that, just go change your email password then, just because we said so. Yeah. This would be a good time to do it. And email's the most important because
like 1Password and LastPass, if they would integrate that database and just
1Password has.
Password. Okay.
1Password has Have I Been Pwned in there. They're a sponsor of Have I Been Pwned, and it's my understanding that 1Password has that information in it.
I would love that everywhere. Like
it would
every
pop up
password.
and say, "Hey, yeah, LastPass should do it too. Hey, it's in there." This Pwned passwords database has 551,509,767 passwords. 500 million passwords that have been exposed in data breaches. Not in the clear, not hashed, or they were hashed but poorly hashed. And so they were either in the clear or they were able to be discovered.
Do we know how many of those were password?
Yeah. In fact, watch this. If you enter password into the Have I Been Pwned password field, 3,645,804 of them have.
If there's any,
do not use password.
How about admin?
Oh yeah, let's try that. This is kind of a fun game. Yeah, admin. How many? Oh, 44,000. Monkey.
Swordfish.
1, 2, 3. Oh no, 26 times before. How about swordfish?
Can you try root, Leo?
Root. That's a bad password. 11,000 times. So you get the idea.
Yeah. But that's one of the few good things about all these data breaches. They give these huge databases of actual in the real world passwords, make them available to security researchers everywhere. So that's why all you got to do is like every single year in December, used to have Mr. Blackwell's worst dressed list. Every year now we get the list of 10 most popularly used passwords, and or 100 most popularly used passwords, and like half of them are always the same. They're password or 6 or. It's
so
it's
feel
sobering that you're not clever.
To make you feel better, Alex, about this, he has a link explaining how he protects those passwords. You still have to trust him, but they're using something called K-anonymity. Cloudflare proposed it. It's a hashing technique that keeps that password you're entering from being in the clear at any point, and that's all on the website.
The proud moment for me was I was talking to my 9-year-old daughter. I'm texting back and forth, and she can't log into her iCloud account. And I made the decision like I am in another country. I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm just going to tell her how to get into it.
Yeah.
And I made a decision. As soon as she gets in, I'm going to change the password and everything else. But I'm going to give her the password. So I text her the password. She goes, and I get this all caps from my 9-year-old going, "What are you doing texting me a password?"
Good for her. Right on.
It's like,
Now
well,
you've taught her well.
She's giving me a really hard time about it. I was like,
Ellen
okay, I'm
knows
going
her
to change it. I've already made a decision.
passwords.
Mad.
Sanitization. He does a really clever thing, actually, which you can verify because the hashing is done done client side in your browser, so you can see what it's sending to Troy.
I will say that I do feel more secure with the long phrase. You know, like a long obscure phrase that means something to you. I don't know if that's more secure or not. I guess if you leave anything for long enough,
if it's English words.
But if it's not, no, it can't be from a book, or it has to be something that's anyway.
What I do with the same thing is I take the first letter of each word, and then I might even pad it with a phone number or some other numbers that you know, and that makes it, I think, pretty obscure. But if it's English words,
but I will say my one for my phone now, because I did a phrase, is like it's like 20-some characters, and when facial recognition doesn't work, you're like, oh my goodness, you know,
especially when you're half awake. Have misspelled curse words in it, though. If you want real security, misspelled curse words and multilingual.
I do everything in leet speak. O's or zeros.
Alpha Galactica. Klingon.
Yeah. So this is just a little PSA that these breaches continue. Passwords are often included in these breaches. Probably a good idea to change your password. And if possible, and this is what Brian Cribbs says, use two-factor everywhere you can. If you can use it, use it. And ideally, let's add one more thing. That second factor should not be based on an SMS message.
Yes.
Good friend of the show, guy. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to expose him to any more damage. But he Facebook messaged me the other day and said, "Just so you know, my SMS was hijacked. They got the second factor, and all my accounts have been hijacked now, and it's been a hell of a time fixing this. But this is a very easy thing to do, either hacking the phone SS7 radios or with social engineering."
Just get a SIM card,
getting a SIM card. And SMS is not a good choice for two-factor. Even if they don't use SMS, if the fallback is SMS, if your bank says, and my bank does this, well, if you can't use Authenticator, we'll text you a sixth.
No.
But that's as bad as we'll just use text then, because that's what the hacker's going to do. Is I lost my Authenticator. I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
So
it's also another reason to remember too. It's a good idea to back up stuff, even back up stuff you have in the cloud, because you don't know you at some point you've got 500 gigabytes, 600 gigabytes of stuff in your Dropbox, some of it like 5-10 years old and like archival sort of stuff. And if something unforeseen should happen, it all goes away, and might be really hard to get back. But it'll be really easy to get back if at one point you decided to spend $80 on a hard drive and just drag that folder to a hard drive, then disconnect it from anything.
I've actually taken on this year doing something crazily analog, which is printing my photos. Like I got a good photo printer. I know. Like I just decided, I was like, I'd be really bummed if I lost some of these photos. And so they're in like 4 different places. So the most important photos I have, but I was like, I think I'm actually going to make a paper copy of some of them, just just in case.
No, but everything I write that's important also gets printed and put into in a 3-wing binder. I would. There are books that I've written that are terrible, novels I've written that are terrible, that I have no interest in publishing or showing to anybody. But if that file ever were to disappear from my documents folder, I'd be really upset, because for 6 to 10 months of my life, I thought that was the most brilliant book ever written. And that's I at least want proof that occasionally I do write.
I have the opposite problem. When I was in high school, I wrote a role-playing game, completely illustrated, like 400 pages, everything, and I only have the physical copy because it was done on Amiga page stream, and I have no way of getting data off of high-density Amiga disks.
Right. Well, see, but you had it printed. See, so you still have it.
But I want the machine version.
Right.
Somebody can get that for you. There is no freaky, silly, obscure Discord file format that somebody hasn't emulated on a Raspberry Pi and can proudly tell you how to get that data back. Even we're already in the rat hole. So what's
we're already in here.
deeper.
We're not digging our way out. Go ahead.
I had a friend of mine a while back. We're just chatting. So, oh yeah, well, I was going through some old files and I found like where all my love letters between myself and my now wife, and I apparently encrypted them because I didn't want anyone to snoop on them. But now I have no idea what the password is, and I don't even have the computer or the piece of software that encrypted it, and I have no way of getting at it. And I said that, and I did like exactly 20 minutes of research and said, I could buy a couple of graphic cards and basically brute force that password at this point, because in 1993 they had no idea that like math processing would be at the level it is right now, and we would run the computer for about no longer than a month and a half, and we'd get all that stuff back again. And he thought about it and decided that no, it's more romantic, the idea that these letters are even a secret from me. And I'm like, that's not what you do. You brute force the technology. But that's the sort of thing we're talking about, that there's nothing that can be stored that can't be retrieved. So that's why, like, even when we're emptying out like my mom and dad's house, it's like I'd see like an old laptop of dad's or in the trash, and I'd say, wait a minute, I would rip out the hard drive and smash it with a hammer, because any sort of data can be recovered from anything. That's sometimes a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing.
We literally took
unless you need it.
We literally took
Yes.
all these old drives that we've had for years that probably don't even run very well, and there's no reason for us to have them. And we took a bandsaw and literally cut them all in half. It was all these old hard drives, just they're raw hard drives. That's how we did backups. And we were like, it's just too much risk, because we have all this camera work of executives on stage practicing and things, like all this other stuff. And we were just like, let's just get rid of this.
Yeah.
Let's just not have it around. So we literally hundreds of discs got cut in half. It was kind of fun.
So I thought I'd ask your comments on this editorial from Apple Insider William Gallagher and Mike Worthley. Apple's management doesn't want Nvidia support in Mac OS, and that's a bad sign for the Mac Pro. I didn't realize this, but Mojave doesn't allow Nvidia GPUs. I guess I knew that. There's no drivers for it, but is it they actually don't allow it?
I don't think it's not that they don't. So my understanding as of a couple of years ago, and it might have changed, is that there was a couple of things. One, there was an incident where Apple was using NVIDIA parts and they had a problem, and Apple felt like NVIDIA totally abandoned them on the issue, that it was an NVIDIA problem and they failed to support it, and they basically threw Apple under the bus for it. And that sort of thing makes Apple cranky, and Apple has big institutional memory. But also when they started to work on Metal, AMD was happy to give Apple complete access. You can write to the Metal, we'll get completely out of your way. If people want, they can use a card, but if not, you can just blast it. Like if you want to use OpenGL, that's fine. If you want to use this, that's fine. But if you want to go Metal, straight to the Metal, that's great. And NVIDIA's like, no, we're NVIDIA. You use CUDA and you like it. And Apple's like, but we want to use Metal. And now you have these two very successful, very proud companies who both want their way and have failed over the last 2 years to make an agreement that best suits both of their combined users.
So NVIDIA complained last October that they said Apple fully controls drivers for Mac OS. Unfortunately, NVIDIA currently cannot release a driver unless it's approved by Apple. There is no support for NVIDIA graphics cards in Mojave or later. So this hostility, whether it's going to limit you or not, does an eGPU still need to have a driver? I guess it does, doesn't it?
It does, and there are beta drivers that a lot of people have experimented with, and some have had quite a lot of success for, but they're not official drivers still, which is an annoying pain.
So, and I kind of aim this at you, Alex, because I think you would like NVIDIA support.
Yeah. I mean, so NVIDIA handles, and I'm not going to get into too much of the detail of it, but it handles the graphics in a much different way than ATI, or AMD, and so the way it chunks the data is much easier to manage in large. So ATI is definitely much more of a game-oriented, very small chunks process, and NVIDIA tends not to be that way, and it tends to be easier to deal with large data sets. And so NVIDIA is a better card, than the ATI ones. The problem is that NVIDIA wants to write as Rene said, NVIDIA wants to write their drivers, Apple wants to write the drivers, because the graphics system is so part of the actual OS that they don't want to give up control of that process, and it's for a lot of good reasons. And so both of them have good reasons for why they're trying to manage control of that. And the issue is that they're not going to, and they're at an impasse. I don't see how they get out of that impasse unless, I mean, Apple doesn't really need Nvidia, and Nvidia doesn't really need Apple. I think that's the bottom line.
It's a little frustrating though for those of us who want to use. I mean, for instance, this new RTX card from Nvidia, which does real-time ray tracing, is using AI for interpolation. Is really, they call it deep learning super sampling. So anti-aliasing is twice as fast, and it really looks amazing, right? So it's a little frustrating for people who want to do this, particularly since with an eGPU, there's no technical reason why you couldn't.
A Quake example?
Yeah, there's a Quake 2 update. It's the same Quake 2 engine.
There's a video on YouTube of someone playing Quake with ray tracing, and it was it's nifty.
This is Battlefield, but yeah, let me show you the Quake because it's.
I mean, the
it's
reality
incredible.
is that it is an edge case, though. I mean, from a day to day, what the average person's using for this, I think that
I can understand where Apple would say we're going to put Radeon chips in our computers, but why would they not allow me to use whatever I want in an eGPU?
Because they want to write the driver. Yeah. They want to write to the metal, and they don't want.
It's part of a bigger battle.
Yeah, it's a much bigger thing, and they're not gonna give in to it because they don't really have the game space on desktops anyway, so it doesn't mean anything to them.
Here's a Quake 2 with ray tracing. It's what's funny is you're using the same engine.
They're upset.
It's the same game, and you could see in fact how crappy the textures are. But when you get to lighting, it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
You blow stuff up. It's
we got to get somebody to blow something up here. So that's
it's bad for the pros who want CUDA cores.
That's really the issue. That's why I ask Alex because see there you go. See with the explosion, you don't. Gamers are one thing. No gamer's going to buy a Mac if you're really a serious gamer anyway.
And no pros are going to, no heavy-duty graphics pros are going to buy a Mac either. So
that's frustrating, though. I mean, if you want to make a Mac Pro,
it'll take a long time for them to do that. I mean, the problem is that the Mac is so. I mean, the Pro. I mean, I have so for the heavy-duty graphics stuff that I have PCs and
you're going to use Windows
Linux machines, and I've got big ones that cost. I mean, I have Linux machines.
Are there good Linux drivers for NVIDIA?
Oh yeah,
NVIDIA writes them.
Yeah. When I have Windows machines that cost $15,000. I mean, they have more than one, big GPUs and tons of RAM, and that was to build them from scratch. And so there's you have that heavy hard. I don't expect my Mac Pro to be able to do that. I don't expect the new Mac Pro to be able to do that. I don't, so I don't have that expectation that if I'm going to do heavy 3D graphics, that I'm going to expect my Mac to do that. And I just don't think it's a big enough market for Apple to really pay much attention to. I do expect it to be able to perform well when it comes to 4K or even 8K video, which Apple is spending a lot of time making sure that stuff is going to work into the future. And so I'm happy with that. When I want to do video editing, I'm not using a PC. I'm using my Mac to do that. But when I'm doing heavy duty 3D graphics,
you're never going to use a Mac.
It's a pipe dream.
Or gaming.
Yeah. It is kind of a sad reminder of kind of how topsy-turvy the Pro line has become, where I think that a consumer line should work from the top down, where it's always the company and the designer saying, we're going to define what this is for and how you use it. That's going to simplify the choices for the user. It's going to also increase the value for the user. When you have a Pro line, though, it really has to go from the bottom up, where it has to be the user is paramount. Whatever the user wants to do with this thing, that thing should be able to support that. If not because of features that are built in, at least because of roadblocks that we're not going to just sort of institutionally place in its way. So when you're starting to charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a desktop, I think the purchaser has the ability, has the power to say, hey, if I want to use an NVIDIA graphics card, and the only thing in your way is just giving NVIDIA a little bit of help and signing their driver, you're going to sign that goddamn driver. I'm sorry, you're going to sign that damn driver. It's at what point do you say that, hey, how much money do I have to give Apple before it will let me do something I want to do with a piece of hardware that I putatively own? So what does the word Pro mean?
But I think you have to define I think exactly what you just said. You have to define what Pro we're looking at, because I think that Apple has a strong base of video pros and not a strong base of 3D pros, and I don't think they're going to ever get those 3D pros back.
But I don't care. Again, if I decide that the Mac is best for my workflow. I would understand if you're saying, if Apple was saying that we're not going to build a Mac with 17 PCI slots because that's just ridiculous for the things that we think that a Mac user wants to do. But when it comes to software, when it comes to all you got to do is support this company that wants to write a driver for this product that will just simply plug it to existing point. I know it's not quite that simple, but this is not a startup company that's trying to find its third route of financing. This is Apple. They've got the resources to do that, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of pro users are walking away from the Mac, because the value proposition is just eroding year after year after year.
Well, I think that they walked away from the Mac because the trash can was a trash can, and it was good for about a month, and it's not upgradable. It's not, there's a lot of other things there. I think there's the number of pros in the video world is so much more than the number of pros in the 3D world. Apple could expand their market if they just took care of that market really well. I think that that high-end area is so tweaky. It is so hard to make everybody happy. I mean, I've worked in this. Yeah. I've been in this industry, that 3D industry for 30 years. And it is so tweaky. No matter what you do, someone's going to be upset that they can't put this little thing in and they can't do this thing, and they're going to be upset about it. And so it's going to be this, it is a whack-a-mole problem that you have to, the problem is every time you add a new thing that you support, you add a new liability and a new thing that is going to be more engineering time and so on and so forth. For Apple, it's a relatively small market. And I'm a hardcore Mac user. I mean, I use a Mac 90% of the time. When I do the hardcore video stuff that I need to do, or hardcore 3D stuff, then I switch over to Windows or Linux, and live streaming I do on Linux on Elementals. And so there's all these things that I just switch over, and I would love to have it done on a Mac. But I think the problem is that it's not just allowing Nvidia to add a driver. It is forking the development on the Mac, and it means that there's new resources and there's new people that have to support that, and there's new things that are going to go wrong, and there's whole bunch of new levels of things that they have to manage in an area where they're probably not going to make those people happy anyway. That part of the world is so far away from Apple now that it would just be an incredible amount of work for a relatively small amount of revenue.
Yeah, of course that's rational, but it's like,
and I would love it. You got to get. I hate switching away from my Mac. I just go. I've given up.
For the end user, it's like a girlfriend that's breaking up with you. It's like I love you,
right.
But I don't care.
And what I'm hoping is what my dream is that Apple's going to give us this kind of 3U that you can take the ears off, and set it up and make it look pretty, or you can put a 3U and slide it in, and they build like new modular things that let you add 3 or 4. But the
cards. Fact that they're not supporting Nvidia tells me they're not going to do that either.
Well, but the thing is, there's lots of other things.
Isn't that the same market though?
No, because you could put multiple ATI cards in. You could put like being able to support all of that, and if Apple stays true to, we're only going to have these ATI cards, you could put 4 of them in there, and the OS could theoretically just address all of them. And so there's a lot of things that Apple can do if they don't fork it that I think is possible.
Oh, I see what you're saying, that they could do better because they're just doing the
whole OS. Because right now, okay, we can have a driver and we can address it and we have to write special code, but what if the OS just did everything you wanted it to do? And you didn't have to do, and the only way to do that is to have absolute control over that pipeline, And
by the way, my iMac Pro, just completely nuts about me, and I want Rene to tell me if this has been fixed. Remember that there was a big issue with the T2 and kernel panics.
The Bridge OS.
Bridge OS 3.0. My iMac Pro still randomly restarts. I think almost every night restarts, and I look at the log and it's Bridge OS crashing. Is that still a problem?
I thought that was fixed.
I thought it was too.
Versions ago, but I'll double check.
I haven't seen it on my MacBook Pro, but it happens on my iMac Pro all the time.
Okay. My iMac restarts about every 10 days.
This one, I let it go to sleep, and then I come back in the next morning, and it's restarted.
Right.
And it says ignore report, and if I do the report, it's always Bridge OS. That's kernel panic.
Mine hasn't restarted in months.
Okay, so maybe there's something wrong with me. It's my fault.
No, it's never you, Leo. It's always the damn machine.
I'm beginning to think. I mean, I've had problems with every Pro Mac, high-end Mac that I've put in there. I don't know.
But you see, most people only buy like a couple every decade. You buy one every 3 months.
That's true.
Just on the law of averages.
Usually it's RAM.
I don't mind having it shut down. It doesn't shut down while I'm using it. It shuts down when it's idle.
For almost my entire career.
I think it's RAM?
From almost my entire career, the stability of one machine versus others
It's RAM.
has always been RAM.
But I'm using official Apple
I know,
RAM.
but
there's a lot of it, though, so maybe it's just...
That was funny because when I spoke to them about the MacBook Air and people complaining about the lack of changeable RAM, and they're like, "Well, we do that on the Mac Mini because hobbyists like it, but on the Air, if we just solder it on the board, there you never have any problems with it anymore."
That's true.
Right.
Until it fails, in which case, hey,
You're out of
I
luck.
wanted a new MacBook Air after only 2 years. Yay!
I really
No,
like my
Yelp
MacBook
and
Air.
Ritchie.
Actually, I have a MacBook Pro with an i9 in it. I have an iMac Pro on my desktop, and I'm always on my MacBook Air.
Yeah.
It's just light, it's easy, and it's fast enough for what mostly what I do. We'll take a break, come back with more in just a moment. If you're a fan of Lost in Translation, I have some good news for you. But first, a word from ExpressVPN. I think we don't have to explain to this audience what a VPN is. A virtual private network. It encrypts your traffic between you and some point out there. The idea being you can surf safely and securely in an open Wi-Fi access spot. If you're sitting here watching the show, as we have people doing it, and you're on an open access spot, the guy next to you, he kind of looks like a hacker. He could be watching your traffic. So a VPN encrypts that traffic all the way out to the VPN server. Same thing with your internet service provider. Do you really know what they're doing with the information they're getting every single time you do anything online at home? ExpressVPN is the best VPN. It will protect your online privacy. It eliminates geographic restrictions. We know you're being tracked online by social media sites, by marketing companies, your mobile provider, your internet provider. They can record your browsing history, and we also know they often sell it to other corporations who want to profit from your information. Take back your privacy with the best VPN service. Number one, according to Tech Radar, it's ExpressVPN. Easy to use apps on every platform, of course iOS, but also Mac, OS, Windows, Android. They run seamlessly in the background on your computer, your phone, your tablet. You turn them on with one click, you turn them off with one click. It secures and anonymizes all your browsing by encrypting your data, hides your public IP address. And because ExpressVPN has servers all over the world, there's always one near you that you can use for speed. There's always one in any country you want to appear to be in. I love that. And they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so why not try it right now? It costs less than $7 a month. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, Leo, I can get something for $1.99 for a lifetime subscription. Yeah, well, let me tell you, if a VPN company is charging you $1.99 for a lifetime subscription, they're making money some other way. And I'm sad to say a lot of these other VPN companies do things like insert ads into your traffic. They literally do that. They have JavaScript insertions. Or they're logging and selling that data. Not ExpressVPN. $7 a month, it's a great price. It's a very fair price, and it means that they can effectively give you great service, high speed, complete security, without logging, without injection. They do it right. If you don't want to hand over your online history to your internet provider or data resellers or that hacker at the coffee shop next to you, ExpressVPN is the perfect answer. Protect your online activity today. Find out how you can get 3 extra months free when you buy a 1-year package. That's basically 15 months for the price of a year at expressvpn.com/MacBreak. expressvpn.com/MacBreak. 3 extra months with their 1-year package. This is the one you've been looking for. This is one I use. expressvpn.com/MacBreak.
NFL ticket.
NFL ticket. That's all we have to say. Just NFL ticket.
Yeah.
If you're in Pittsburgh.
No. See, the problem is if you're anywhere in the United States, they black out all the stuff.
It's frustrating.
Just in case you're wondering, and if not that I would ever do this.
No, because it would be wrong.
It would be wrong. But if you buy the NFL ticket in Delhi, none of the games are blacked out.
No games are blacked out in India. Who'd have thunk it?
No, they all figure if you're in Delhi, you probably like cricket, and so we'll just let you watch football. And then if you did that, you could AirPlay to your TV.
Yeah,
But
see what Alex is doing is that he's helping out these broadcasters by pointing out inefficiencies and flaws in their security, so that they can finally take some action and stop getting these little people to just hurt them and hurt them and hurt them. That's what Alex is concerned about. He's not trying to get people to find their way around the system.
Did you love
now that I've
Lost
said it, I've ruined it for everybody.
Did you love Lost in Translation? Bill Murray, that great Sofia Coppola story where he's in Japan, Scarlett Johansson, they're both jet lagged as hell. They go out a night on the town in Tokyo. So what a wonderful movie.
It's kind of slow.
What?
There was no shooting.
Did you watch it at 1.5x?
John Wick 4.
I would have back then. I was just like, I'm not very good with long cuts.
Alex, I've seen the work your company does. If you were disappointed there wasn't any shooting in that movie, you could have fixed that.
Yeah. Little green screen here.
Exactly.
Actually, I just don't watch then the new Netflix movie Io, which is about which is a wonderful movie, but is the slowest sci-fi movie ever.
Is it slower than Unbreakable?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
What's
slow.
funny is I kind of liked Unbreakable. I don't know why.
I did
usually
too.
don't like slow moving movies, but I can't get my wife to watch it. Go, that was too slow, and I'm like,
across the table.
Bill Murray and Sofia Coppola are teaming up again. This will be Apple's first feature film under their new partnership with A24. On the Rocks, Rashida Jones will co-star with Bill Murray. Coppola's script. She's, of course, the director and writer of Lost in Translation. It follows a young mother who reconnects with her larger-than-life Playboy father on an adventure through New York. Sound a little bit like Lost in Translation? Just a little bit?
Who's Murray playing? Do we know?
I think he's playing the Rashida Jones character. I don't know. I'll tell you, Apple continues to...
I think they should just pay Bill Murray just to follow him around, because you just...
I know.
Like,
there's a documentary.
There's a documentary. There's a documentary of Bill Murray, but they
following him around.
They just should follow him around though, because I'm just so curious about what his life.
But that's the Bill Murray
like.
documentary. It's like following him around.
Oh, is it following him around? I thought it was just talking about all the weird Bill Murray sightings.
I don't think it's like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's an actual glimpse into Bill Murray's life.
It's just,
which he probably
it's
doesn't
about
know.
urban legends around him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the cover. Bill Murray stories.
Well, and the fact that he doesn't have an agent, so you just have to call and leave a message, and people just call.
And he might call you back.
And if he decides
like
to do
Alex.
it, he'll just do it. Like he's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
That sounds good. You gotta love him. Right?
You need the
iPhone. Apple's is selling the iPhone SE again. What?
Oh, it's gone.
They were getting rid of old
Too
stock.
late.
Yep.
Out of stock. $299 for the 128 gig unlocked version. What a bargain! $249. Why would you even buy a 32 gig for $249 when you got? Oh, because they have them.
They had them around.
So the idea was this was in the warehouse. Somebody found them.
Yeah. Hey Joe, what do we do with these? Oh, let's put them up on the site and see if we can get rid of them.
I don't know. Were they new or were they refurb? Because the refurb, it could have been the ones that came back.
New.
Okay.
It's all gone.
I think they were just literally like someone found, hey, we got a creative SEs over here. Well, we haven't been selling the other ones. Let's get these out.
I mean, this happens all the time with companies, and usually they just bury them in the desert or something.
Well, why not? Why not sell them?
No, well, there are companies that actually just put returns into the grinder because they don't want the pricing to be devalued by the presence of underpriced overstock merchandise on there. So I'm glad to see these things hit the secondary market. As a matter of fact, there are HomePods, reconditioned HomePods for $220 last week or late last week. That would have been the perfect opportunity for anybody who had one who wanted to pair up a stereo one, because they came with like a 90-day not Apple warranty, but at least if they started a fire within 90 days, you get your money back.
Apple has, I think this happened last week. Rene mentioned it, released their new smart battery case, the case that swallowed the Canary. And there was a little confusion. 9 to 5 Mac do we not have it? She left already. Okay, Megan has it, but it looks the same as the old one, except it goes all. You have it there? Goes all the way to the edge now. There's Rene. Oh, he's got all. He's got all of them. Collect all three. So there's black, white, and what? Off black?
Gotta catch them
all.
No,
there's just this is the iPhone 10. Sorry, iPhone 10s, 10s Max, and 10R.
Oh, okay. And
get them in black or
there
white.
was some confusion. 9 to 5 Mac said initially that because the smaller milliamp hour. This is why Apple probably doesn't say the
This
capacity.
is exactly why.
Because I was ripping on them during iOS today because they never say, they just give you hours of life or whatever. It's a 10.1 watt hour battery.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But it's 2 cells. So what happened was Apple sent out a few review units, and one of the reviewers took a photograph of what I think was the capacity of 1 cell in milliamp hours. But a lot of people will tell you that milliamp hours is no longer a very good indicator of what it can do with the battery, because we have so much power management now that it's the efficiency, not the volume,
the watt
that
hours
matters.
that count, not the
watt
milliamp
hours. Totally.
Yeah.
And what Apple did is switch to a 2-cell battery. So you actually have 2 cells in there, and together they happen to be higher milliamp hours than the previous one. But it's, like you said, it's 10.1 watt hours, which is the important part.
So it is bigger capacity than the old.
Yeah, and it's
case.
thicker.
And it has a lot of features that are unique because it's from Apple. For instance, you can see its charge, in your notifications. It charges wirelessly, which I don't think there's any other battery case that'll charge wirelessly.
Mophie's new one, I think,
will,
but I think it's slightly different. Yeah, I think it does full Wi-Fi wireless pass-through. Well, this one goes wireless to the case and then lightning to the phone.
So basically what happens is your wireless charger charges the battery in the case, which then charges the battery in the phone.
It's super smart. So this took a while too. So what Apple has this technology called Smart Charge. And the way it works is it figures out how much power is coming in through the lightning port. And then for example, if you put it into a giant MacBook Pro battery, it's like we've got power for days. We'll just fast charge both of them to 50% and then leave them charging after that. If there's less charge though, it'll prioritize fast charging the iPhone. And then whatever is left over the iPhone fast charge will go to the case. And when the iPhone hits 50%, it'll split it evenly. If you give it like a rinky-dinky iPhone charger though, it's going to take all that power for the iPhone first until it gets to 80% and then split the charge with the case, so that it always manages to give you the best charge you can for iPhone and then incidentally charge the case until it gets halfway and then charge both.
Wow, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
It has a lightning port on it. It costs a lot, $129. That's more than anybody else. And how much so what has your experience been? Is it, because I know you're Pokemon going with this thing on.
I did. I used it for the event. I always use it for a Pokemon event because that's the best indicator. And usually the batteries last about 4 hours of like nonstop Pokemoning. iPhone XR is already a champ, but iPhone XR with this case, I feel like I could go for 3 days, Leo.
I love the XR. I have to say the size is perfect. The battery life's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I don't mind the LCD screen at all.
And I think it's like 29 additional hours of video with
Louise.
the case. It really is. I was using it for I started playing at 6:30 in the morning, and I think I finished it around noon one day, and I played from like 10 in the morning till 6 the other day because it was a two-day event thing, and I never got close to running out of battery. I think I depleted the case about 7 or 8 hours later, and the phone was still mostly full.
More importantly, did you get a shiny Groudon?
I did not. I still don't have one. I'm so salty, Leo. I did so many raids. People don't understand when they say there's a 1 in 19 shot, they think that if you do 19, you get one.
No.
But that just means they're rolling a 20-sided die every time. And you could roll 1 every time.
Every time. And so apparently that's what Rene did.
Statistics are horrible.
The only thing wrong with this case, it's still butt ugly.
So the design, so the principle here is that so this is the original one. If you look at the original one, they really wanted nothing but the battery on top of the case, and then they shrink wrap the whole thing.
Right.
It's like the least we could possibly do.
That
but
makes
because
sense.
they had a chin, it would get in. There is RF interference in battery cases, which is why you put your phone in a battery case. A lot of them get really hot because the phone can no longer connect. So it ramps up the radio, and that wastes a lot of power. while you're trying to charge. So Apple put a battery, a passive antenna array in the old case. In the new one, they chopped off the chin completely, and they made that new antenna system. The new antenna system works with the case so that you don't lose any signal, and that prevents it. It gets a little bit warm, but it doesn't get hot like when I put it in a Mophie or some other case. And then also because Apple has good iOS integration, proprietary iOS integration, it knows to stay in mobile mode. A lot of cases when you plug them in, it thinks it's plugged into a wall outlet.
Oh, yeah.
So it spins up all the updates, the photo syncs, the cloud syncs, and it starts, again, using a ton of power. And the iPhone case doesn't do that. It keeps it in mobile mode. So it keeps it in low power mode. So you really are getting the maximum benefit of all that charge. So it's expensive, but you're getting a a lot of technology for what you're paying.
He didn't address the butt ugly part.
No, it is still ugly. But I mean, the alternative is to. It is horrible. I don't know if is it still as ugly. I think it's.
It's a little less ugly because it goes to the edge now. So
it went from hump to rump, Leo. That's basically what we have here. We used to have a hump. Now we have a rump.
Yeah.
This case has got back.
You convinced me. I guess I'll get one. Be good for Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
and
like
then
my
inevitably
wallet.
there'll be a red one.
I actually carry. I just keep I have a phone-sized Type-C battery that I just carry around with. It charges really fast too because of the power delivery. Well, how do they support power delivery on this? I thought that was a Type-C thing.
No, I don't. So
it's not.
No, because the iPad has been doing power delivery for a long time. Like you could get the much bigger iPad charger.
So it's just a faster charge spec, but it doesn't. The
lightning cable, because you plug lightning cable into a USB-C charger and you get PD. So it's like the lightning cable can carry it. You just need the USB-C brick on the back.
That makes sense. That's the advantage of owning the technology. What do you think of the rumor? There is a rumor that they're going to use Type-C on the next generation iPhone.
But one thing I just wanted to add before this, because there is some confusion. Apple is shipping all these depleted. So people are getting them and they're not charged. And that's because of the shipping regulations. It's much easier for them to ship if they don't charge the battery, if it's not a device. But it can't always wirelessly charge if it's empty. Like it needs a little bit of power to do that handshake. So if you just put it on a wireless charger, you'll see the light, but it won't charge. You got to plug it into Lightning for at least a few minutes to wake it up, and then it'll handle all the wireless
Another
charging.
caveat, 9 to 5 Mac points out that it will fit your iPhone 10.
It's actually my photo.
They stole your photo. I recognize that wall anywhere.
They link to it.
Bastards. Ritchie now says it does at 12. If you have 12.1.3, which just came out this morning, it will work, but with inconsistent results. So which is it? Which is it, Ritchie?
So I've had some issues. Other people, it's just been a little bit flaky for me. So, and I was talking to a lot of people about this because I got my review unit at the same time The Verge did, and Wirecutter and a bunch of others. And like The Verge, they were just putting any phone willy-nilly, and it seemed to work for them. It did not work at all for me at first. So I updated and rebooted, and then the iPhone 10 works in the iPhone 10s case. Still doesn't work in the 10s Max case for me, but I guess for safety's sake, I would never do that anyway.
Right.
But if you have iOS 12.1.2, I think it'll give you that warning and you can dismiss it. If you have, maybe if it's earlier than that, if you have 12.1.3, it should just work fine.
Anything
it doesn't
else
fit the camera exactly, and the stereo. Apple optimized the stereo cutouts for that wide stereo effect they have with iPhone 10s. So people who actually can hear sound, not like me, like all music sounds the same to me. They might notice a difference, but nobody's been complaining about it so far. It's just an additional thing.
12.1.3 came out this morning. Anything else? It's just security patches, things like that.
Yeah, and bug fixes. Performance improvements.
Yeah. But one of the beauties of being iPhone users is we'll all get it. An iPad too. Yep. We'll all get it.
Yep.
So now let's talk rumors. One rumor says Apple likely to drop LCDs entirely next year. Not this year. Next year, 2020. And go all OLED, which why not? As long as you can get them, right?
Some people have a negative, some people actually have a problem. So there's a bunch of mitigations that people use to stop OLED from burning in, and one of them is frequency modulation. And some people can see that, and it causes vertigo for them. Oh. So they will always ditch an OLED phone and get an LCD phone if they can. So there is a small contingent of people who would not be very happy if Apple goes all in on OLED. But I think for people who don't have that condition, they want as many OLED phones as they can get.
This was actually buried in a Wall Street Journal article with a headline that might fool you. Apple supplier in Japan looks to Taiwan for bailout after iPhone XR letdown. Okay, fine, but
Wall Street Journal.
But really, this is the story. Apple likely to drop LCD displays.
There's not enough. Like we've seen, Apple and Google have been throwing money at LG and other companies, desperate to increase, not only to remove Samsung's stranglehold on the OLED market, but just to increase the amount of OLED screens available because everybody wants them and there's not enough to go around. And Apple's paying. I think the rumor was it was probably too high. But the rumor was Apple's paying $120 per screen.
Yikes.
At first for those, and that shoots up your bill of goods.
And do you think Apple will put a Type-C connector on the 2019 iPhone?
There are rumors for a while that Apple and Google were trying to get rid of ports, and there was a strong rumor that the Pixel 2 even would get rid of ports, but they couldn't figure out remote recovery, which is a problem you have with Apple Watch, that if anything goes wrong in the installation, you've got to go to an Apple store.
Right.
They got it working on Apple TV, so you can remote recover, but with Xcode, and that's just not a consumer-friendly solution. As far as I know, maybe it's easier now. But you've got to be real, because a lot of people say, "Oh, just ditch the port," but you got to be rock solid, because you can't give people a phone, which is so important to them, and then if it freezes, have no way for them to do anything about it.
That's a really.
But going to USB-C now, I think people wouldn't be as angry. I think if they did it too soon after Lightning, because we forget, like, we love it because we're nerds and we have USB-C everything, and literally it would be so convenient for me right now to just have a USB-C cable. I love it on my iPad. I love it now. But a lot of people are like, I have an iPhone and I bought a bunch of Lightning stuff, and if you touch it, I will cut you, because they could care less about USB-C. So they have to balance those two things.
It's not desirable though to have Type-C on your laptops and your iPad Pros, but not on your other iPads.
It seems like
the market is so much bigger for iPhone.
Yeah,
the trajectory once the iPad went that way, I think, is
go C. But you're right. The iPhone is a market that stands alone. It's a massive market.
And we also know, Leo, that the minute Apple goes all in on Type-C, USB consortium is just going to announce USB-C Mini. I know. Yeah. Like, I'm just so angry that they know that's going to happen.
Apple, this is an interesting story. Supposedly working to subsidize Apple Watch for at-risk seniors through Medicare, private Medicare Type B plans. That would be very cool. According to CNBC, Apple's been in talks with at least 3 private Medicare plans about subsidizing the Apple Watch for people over 65. Oh, just a couple of years from now, I'll be able to do that. To use as a health tracker.
Yeah, that's a real escalation of what the role of the Apple Watch is. Because now it's really, really valuable in terms of collecting, in terms of creating a herd immunity sort of thing, of collecting so much data about senior health and senior data and senior movement and senior pulse rates. God forbid if they get the EKG data in there as well. But there's also going to be as much time and as much money that has to be spent on elder care to begin with. If you're adding, now we have to investigate every single piece of data that doesn't correlate with previously collected data. That could be a bit of a problem. It might be a more it'd be a less worrisome thing if we were talking about a simpler fitness tracker as opposed to a full bore Apple Watch, because the watch is collecting weeks of data that's going to be available to primary care physicians. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the really important thing is detecting falls, detecting changes in gait, and again, collecting and amassing that sort of data to be able to preventatively say, perhaps at this person's next checkup, they should be checked for Parkinson's because this person seems to be stumbling a lot more than they used to, and their sleep is now changed in a way that was a lot different before they went on this medication. But there's a lot to be talked about how sometimes collecting too much information is actually contrary to a patient's better interests health-wise.
I think that individually, I think you're right. I think that as a group, and you talked about a little bit about this, but as a group, I think that having a huge sample of lots and lots of people, especially in an area where they're at risk, over time is going to be able to give us early indicators of problems that happen months or years before the real issue occurs, that we can't see right now because we just don't have that sample. And so having that kind of constant data collection, I do think over time is going to be life-changing. I mean, we'll be treating people for things that we know are going to be a problem 2 or 3 years from now, that we weren't even aware of at the moment.
Well, see, but again, there are 2 different things that are going to be that you hope will be a benefit of this sort of thing. One is, again, you're collecting so much data from such a wide sample of people that now we can build a much better AI model, for instance, for taking this small indicators and building it to something that maybe we should be checking on this for this patient later on. The other thing is that we've been seeing lots of data coming in about the ECG feature on Apple Watch, and a lot of this stuff is. Isn't it? My heart was racing. I didn't know why. So 4 or 5 days later, I went into the hospital. I went to see my doctor or get something checked out, or I went to the emergency room and was able to show the data. And the doctor was able to look at that data and say, okay, well, you had a little AFib incident. We can't treat it. We don't know if that's a problem or not. You don't have any other symptoms whatsoever. It hasn't affected your health. Here's your bill for $3,000. Thank you for coming. And that's not necessary. It hasn't been demonstrated yet as something where, oh, thank God you came in, and we're going to put you immediately into this ICU. We're immediately going to put you on this therapy, because if we had not known about this, you would have died. We're not getting a whole lot of data on that yet. We won't be expecting to do that data for years. But remember that one of the possible outcomes is that a moment that passed pretty quickly now arrives for the sort of data that says that, great, this is one of those many things in medical science where this weird thing happened. We don't know why. You seem to be perfectly healthy.
But I guess I would say is it's weird right now, but with enough sample, years from now, with enough samples,
that's what I'm saying. The difference between we're collecting so many samples that in the future we can train an AI or train actual doctors on, here's where we can correlate between this data was collected and this was the patient's health a year or two later. The thing we just have to make sure we don't get that confused with the watch on my wrist diagnosed a problem that I was having, and gosh, I would have had a heart attack within 3 months if not for the fact that this watch told me that I was about to have a heart attack in 3 months. That's not a reasonable expectation. That has a danger of sort of tamping down the potential of these devices, because when people say, well, I gave one to my sister and she died anyway, what the hell? I want $400 back.
Come on, I gave you an Apple Watch.
Actually, the funnier parts of it is like when you're on Reddit and other places, the Apple Watch forums, and you say, "Well, I was going out to dinner with my husband, and here's the exact moment where he said that he wanted a divorce." And you see this one spike up to 230.
You're seeing a lot of these now.
It was at 8. It was exactly at 8:38
or from Sunday
PM.
during the football game.
I've had 2 times where my watch said you're seated, but you have 120 beats per second. I'm watching a Steeler game. It's just, I don't have that
Good
problem.
job. Yeah. Excellent fidgeting. You closed your fidgeting goal for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to say, lately I have been just looking at the when I got that bad news, did that spike my?
I just find that I have a lot of arguments with my fitness rating, because I'm like, I was doing a bunch of moving yesterday. It was a lot of carrying stuff up these stairs and putting it on. I was covered in sweat, and I looked down and I was like, really? All I got was 200 calories? Come on.
Hate it when that happens.
Come on. I mean, that was a lot of work.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, my friends, my gentlemen friends, my boyfriends, if you will, let us have our picks of the week, shall we? Meanwhile, our show today brought to you by FreshBooks, the easy-to-use cloud accounting software that's helping small business owners thrive. FreshBooks is double-entry cloud bookkeeping. But when I say that, I know you go, what? I don't want to do that. No, you don't have to do that. This is the beauty of it. It's real accounting, but you're not doing it. FreshBooks does it. All you're doing is using FreshBooks to create beautiful, professional-looking invoices, which you send to your clients. You could see which invoices have been sent, which have been viewed, which have been paid, which are overdue. Yes, you can see which ones have been viewed, so people can't say, oh, I didn't get your invoice. Ha ha. You can accept online payments directly from your invoice, which, by the way, means you're going to get paid an average of twice as fast, because it turns out, as much as you don't like making invoices, and I know what a pain it is because I hated it. That's why I started using FreshBooks all those years ago. Your client hates paying bills just as much, not because he doesn't want to give you the money, just it's a pain to sit down and do it. Well, if it's just there in the invoice and there's just a button and you click the button and you're paid, that's why you get paid faster. But look what you've got. You got your accounts receivable, the invoices that are out there. You got your accounts paid. You could put your expenses in there if you bill for expenses. Just take a picture of the expense receipt. It goes right in the invoice. Even if not, you keep track of all your expenses right there in the app. In fact, FreshBooks will even automatically connect to your bank account and update expenses every day. Okay, so now you got your costs, you got your receivables, you got your received. Wait a minute. It's done your books. It's done your books. And you could quickly generate and access all the accounting reports you'd ever want right there in the FreshBooks dashboard. For a lot of small businesses, it's the first time you ever knew that whether you were making a money or not, whether you were profitable or not at any given time. Usually, I would know when I filed my taxes after a year, but now you can know at any given time. It's great, by the way, when it comes time to tax time, because you can easily share those reports with your accountant and financial advisor, and it has they have added an accounting and reports tab in the nav bar, which gives you access to the numbers that matter to you. Things like real double entry accounting functions. In fact, they just added 7 new features, including cost of goods sold, other income, general ledger, trial balance, charts of accounts, accountant access, balance sheet. I hate to say it even because it maybe makes people go, I don't know how to do that. You don't have to. This is all done just in the process of running your business. Also new advanced payments, mark time as unbilled, revenue streams. I want you to take a look at the interface. So we're going to give you 30 days free just to see what FreshBooks can do for you. This would be a great time to start using FreshBooks now so that tax time next year, you got all the stuff you need. It's all together. You push a button, it's done. Freshbooks.com/MacBreak. Please, if you would, put MacBreak Weekly in the How Did You Hear About Us section so we get credit for it. Freshbooks.com/MacBreak, and you get 30 days absolutely free. FreshBooks is the best thing that ever happened to me when I was sending out invoices, and let it be the best thing that ever happened to you. Freshbooks.com/MacBreak. Andy Ihnatko, do you have a pick of the week, my friend?
Yes. My pick of the week is a simple hunk of plastic that doesn't cost very much, that solves a problem with your Apple TV. It's by a company called Total Mount. They make these really cool little mounting brackets for not only the Apple TV, but also the remote. It kind of doesn't make any sense that you have to have like a shelf somewhere to support an Apple TV that does nothing but act as a junction box for various cables. Total Mount is this simple little but nicely made little box that you can either stick on the wall or stick even behind the television set that basically keeps it in place, keeps it off a shelf, keeps it off a table. And they also have even better a little remote storage thing, which every time I've been in a conference room and have had to like wait 10 minutes while someone figures out where somebody left the little tiny Apple TV remote. I went to the first conference room where I saw a Total Mount where they just actually had this little remote caddy just stuck to the back of the TV again. So all they had to do is reach behind it and boom, there's that little stick of licorice gum in order to get things from. They make a line of stuff, including stuff for like other TV streamers and a couple of different like security cams. But I did wind up buying a Total Mount Apple TV for the Apple TV in my bedroom, and it's just like it solved the problem of just. Have you ever had a problem where it's not really affecting your life, but it's just offending you as a logical being, that I've got this black box with cables dangling out of it on a shelf somewhere, strictly not because I'm always plugging things in and out of it, or because there's an infrared port that has to be like pointed at wherever people are seated. It's just because there's no place to put this. On top of all that, it solves a problem, and it's also like $18 on Amazon, so you can hardly go wrong with this.
Very cool. I never even knew about that. That's neat. It is not at totalmount.com, though. It's at Innovellis.com.
Innovellis. I think they sell exclusively through Amazon, though.
So okay. Just search for Total Mount on Amazon, and you're done.
Right. If you do go to the Innovellis site, you'll see like middle-aged to young people in T-shirts smiling and holding products that are not stock photos, but clearly are employees trying to do stock photography. So if you're into that, definitely hit the site.
Alex Lindsay has his lips sealed, but unseal them for a moment for us, would you, and give us your pick of the week.
So my pick for the week is I had over the Christmas break, I had to write a report. That's what I do for a break, is I write a report. And so I had to write this 20-page report about live streaming and all these other things. And so I decided as a challenge, can I build it all in Pages on my iPad? So like, can I actually do it without my laptop and everything else? And it turns out I can. And it's actually, now that I've gotten used to it. So my recommendation is Pages, and actually my kids have gotten very good at Keynote by themselves without almost any training at all. They actually work really well. In fact, but now that I'm used to Pages on my iPad, I found that I'm frustrated by Pages on my Mac. So it just feels very like clickety click when you get used to using it. So it is. It's definitely, if you've been not using it or not playing with it, it actually is it's pretty powerful, and being able to touch the screen is pretty awesome. So, but it was a big lift for me. I will admit, the first 2 or 3 days of it, there was a long string of swearing. I was really glad my kids weren't in the room as I tried to figure out where something that I knew on the Mac was, where it was on the iPad, and why it wouldn't drag, and getting used to the modal nature of you're touching it for this but not for that. And so anyway, it does take a little bit of a learning curve, and but I will say that it's well worth it. I've been kind of on this mode of trying to slim down my what I carry around every day. So I've been really working on making my iPad work, and Pages and
isn't it amazing?
Numbers
People just take it for granted. It's actually great.
For what?
Pages.
You can do a lot. I mean,
I know.
I was publishing to iBooks from Pages, and I'm at it. You can add movies, and you can.
Lisa was complaining the other day because she didn't have Word on her new Mac or the new iPad, and I said, "Well, just use Pages."
Right.
And she said, "Oh, I don't think that." And I said, "Well, just try it." And she said, "This is great."
in the early
forget
days,
that it's there and it's free.
In the early days, it was a little sluggish. Like it always felt like you were pulling something through molasses. Yeah. And now the performance has gotten up to speed, and you just get used to all the little things. I haven't really used Word regularly since Pages came out, so I've used it for a long time. And when it comes to sheets, not sheets, but numbers, I have to admit that if you're doing heavy numbers, like big spreadsheets that are like 10 sheets and they're all integrated, I can see that Excel might be a little bit faster. But if you're just doing your little budgets or your checklists or whatever, Numbers is so much better than anything that's out there, because you're not constrained to the cell structure. You can build like little ones all over the place and make.
I love Numbers. I think Numbers is great, and I rarely need anything with more power than Numbers. I mean,
yeah. I did a presentation and I handed someone to it, and when they were talking about, well, what if we change this calculation? I just went in and typed it. He goes, "What are?" He
thought it was a page.
He thought it was
a Word
a
document
PowerPoint.
or something. Yeah,
because it looked so nice. It was all designed, and I just started moving little scroll bars and moving things around. And once you
do that magic?
Well, and it just looks completely formatted, except that they're all integrated cells. And so it's really powerful when you get used to it. Anyway.
I agree. A little plug for Pages.
Pages, and I would say Keynote and Numbers. I mean,
Keynote. Everybody knows Keynote's better than PowerPoint. But Numbers is darn good too.
Yeah, it's great.
Mr. Rene Ritchie from iMore and Vector Podcast with his Canadian hat on. It says Canada like 4 times on that hat.
Just so that I can travel internationally safely, Leo. No big deal.
Yes, that's a smart move.
I'm just kidding. Don't attack the Americans when I can't travel domestically.
It is not red. What give us a pick?
So I was going to talk about the battery cases, but since we did that already, I figured I would talk about
Apple's.
Well,
you could talk about that.
I recommend them. I think they're great if you want to be able to. Yeah, if you want to go like camping or if you want to go on a road trip. For me, the worst is traveling, because I go to an airport and airports always have really bad signal, and then I start roaming, and like the phones are world phones, but there's no accounting for how the different modems are tuned for the different towers around the world and different and it's just, whenever I roam, the battery just drains precipitously. And also because you're traveling so much, you're using your phone and not, interspersing it with using computers or iPads or other things. So whenever I travel, whenever I go to conferences, whenever I go to shows, I use these huge battery packs. And this case it's heavy enough that you understand why people who say Apple should just double the size of a battery in an iPhone really, would not like it if Apple actually did that, because taking it off is like, oh, I finished my dumbbell curls for today. Now I can go back to just enjoying my phone. But when you need it, if you have just the slim iPhone, when you need it, you could put it on and go camping for the weekend and go out for that Pokemon event or go traveling to Europe or whatever, and your phone will last. And again, it is a little bit expensive, but the quality of it, like from the materials to how they test it, how they protect the cells for drop tests, protect the screen, all these different things, they put a lot of effort, a lot of technology into it. So if you can afford it and you want it, it's really good.
Nice.
The other thing I was going to mention is while we were doing this, probably just before we started doing the show, Apple announced their new Shot on iPhone competition. So it's open to everybody who shoots with an iPhone. All you have to do, I believe, is tag Shot on iPhone and show them your best work. And they have some great judges like Austin Mann, who's done some terrific iPhone camera reviews in the past. But they also have some really cool judges from Apple. Like they have Phil Schiller, who's a longtime aficionado. but they also have Kai Andrance, who runs iPhone marketing at Apple. They have Sebastian Marino, who's the head of the VP of software for camera. They have, I'm blanking on his name now, but the guy who runs the camera team. So they have a deep pool of internal John McCormick, that's right. Thank you, Andy. Really great people, really great photographers, really great people who are familiar with how the iPhone shoots, judging this. So if you win, you get your picture up on billboards and in Apple stores. And it's one of those things where Apple didn't invent this campaign. Apple noticed that people were hashtagging it shot on iPhone. And the best marketing campaigns are always the ones that are driven by your user base, or always the sort of grassroots ones, the community ones. And Apple's doing a really good job of amplifying this. So if you have an iPhone, doesn't matter how old, some of the photos shown there are iPhone 7, iPhone 6, iPhone 6S, and not biasing this towards the latest or the greatest. Just get out there and shoot. And if you want to, share and get a little bit of attention.
This shot of Petra in Jordan by Erdem Sumek is really good because it avoids all of the tourists and the booths and the stands and all the other garbage around the beautiful carvings at Petra. It makes it look so... You've never seen a picture... When I go to Petra, which I'm doing this fall, I'm going to take pictures where you see all the other stuff, just so people know.
Right.
There's a great video.
Well, that's like that.
Peter
Have you been to the snow monkeys in Japan?
Same thing. I want to go to Nagano.
Well, you go to Nagano and then to Ihnatko.
Yeah.
And you go up there and it looks so pristine, but then it's like concrete and there's a whole bunch of people like literally
it's a
3
zoo.
feet from
Really, it's a zoo.
It is. It's a zoo with
there's a great video.
But without any fences. Like those monkeys.
The monkeys have a hot tub. Why would they leave?
Well, someone said, well, what if we get in them? And they're like, the monkeys will not like that. They will. The monkeys are very strong.
Plus, you might not like spending time in a hot tub where monkeys have been bathing.
There's a great video from Peter McKinnon a couple weeks ago called The Bucket Shot, where all his life he wanted to get this one shot in Alberta of this beautiful lake with snow and still water, and you see him get the shot, but then it peels back and there's like 100 people around him trying to get the exact same shot, but and not get anybody else in it at the same time.
Well, and Angkor Wat's like that. If you go to Angkor Wat, there's 2 pools on either side of the main area, and there is about 2,000 people on the wrong pool. It has a horrible shot of Angkor Wat, but the stores are over there, and I guess the tourists or the guides take them all over there so they buy stuff. And then there's like 100 people that know that the other side is it, but still 100 people that you're trying to like move around and try to get that one shot that everybody takes exactly the same shot.
I think that guy also has shot a video of like there's that famous like little sort of like washed out desert rock formation that has that beautiful lighting in Arizona. And so again, you can get this beautiful shot of like orange rocks and the sunlight streaming, and I think he did another video that was where he went there and was literally like you get the special photo pass and it's 20 people lining up to your turn, step up here, and then the person who arranged the tour will throw the sand in the air to get that sort of dusty effect. Like 10 seconds, okay, click next. And that doesn't seem like the adventure of creativity, uniqueness, and expression. It's
Chris Marquardt was inveighing against Instagram hashtags for locations, and there's even if you go to where was it? It was somewhere in Utah. They say please don't hashtag this photo because it's just caused huge problems for a lot of these the most scenic spots in the world because there's just all these people going, well, I gotta get my Instagram shot of this,
Yeah, that's
Jackson's
kind of
Hole, Wyoming. That's what it was.
If you go to the most famous landmarks in the world, there's always a unique shot to get there. And when you see 100 people all into the same thing, you know that it's time to go to try to find the other side of that thing. It's just, I mean, I'm sorry, have fun the way you would like to have fun, but it's sometimes there's a difference between photography and just doing a photo scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Oh, also one note on the iPhone contest: no nudies.
Oh man. Well, they want to. By the way,
humans. You get no nude humans.
They're going to announce the winners in February, and you get credit, but they also get to use your picture in billboards for
a year. For a year, but it's a limited license for 1 year. It seems fair. Of course, it would also be nice if you got like a free $50 gift card or something. But that's whatever.
Andy, nude squirrels are fine though. I just want to make sure that you know that you can put as many nude squirrel shots as you want.
There's a line of thought that they're even sexier if you have a little bit of clothing on them. I don't know if that applies to squirrels as well, but I intend to find out before February 7th.
Squirrels in jean shorts. This whole show has gone down.
Boudoir.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we bid you a fond farewell. Andy Ihnatko is at the WGBH, Boston Public Radio. You going to be on this week?
Not this week, but I believe next Thursday.
And, of course, his website, ihnatko.com. Yep. Everybody must hi the. Alex Lindsay's on the Twitter. That's the best way to keep up with his work at the Pixel Core, ALEXLINDSAY. And
there's lots of random things on there.
There's lots of stuff on there.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's still tweeting after all these years.
I think I just like the ADD side of it. It's like we have a conversation for like a couple minutes or in a couple hours,
move on.
and then tomorrow we'll talk about something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't drag out. We don't have to have a long conversation about
Do you
this.
have the new Twitter and the conversation stuff that they're doing and all that?
I haven't
Did you
tried
get it yet?
No, I haven't tried it.
I think only some people get it.
I don't want it.
I'm not that
I don't
special.
want it. I don't know anything about it. That's my excuse.
I think this is Twitter's problem is that it's exactly the way I want it. Like I don't need anything new from Twitter. I just like I
don't think Twitter knows what they want, so that's the hard part.
Right.
I just loved kind of watching it from afar. Rene Ritchie, he does the Vector podcast, a must listen at imore.com/vector. Of course, you see him on iMore all the time. And apparently his photos on 9 to 5 Mac. So there's that.
No, they linked me.
They
That's
gave
all
you
good.
credit. I know, right at the top there. Yeah.
That's true.
It's great to have you, Rene. Anything upcoming you want to mention?
I just right before the show started posted. I was trying to get this video up 2 weeks ago, but it ended up being way more complicated than any video I've ever done before. So I did one on the secret history of iPhone, which is platform experience purple, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff on how the iPhone got to be made.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun.
Nice. That'll be fun to watch that. That's cool. imore.com. Thank you all for being here. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, around about 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. If you want to stop by and watch it live, you can do that. We have a live video and audio stream at twit.tv/live. You can also, if you're going to do that, you might as well join us in the chat rooms, irc.twit.tv. That's where all the people who are watching live hang out. It's always a lot of fun, 24/7. irc.twit.tv. You can get on-demand versions of the show, actually every show we do on our website, twit.tv. In this case, it's twit.tv/mbw for MacBreak Weekly. And you can also subscribe in your favorite podcast application. That way you'll just get it every time it's available, the minute it's available on Tuesday afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now I am sad to say it's time to get back to work because you know it. Break time is over. Bye-bye.